But really, if you look around, it's all fake because the women that do that are very angry and unhappy
Hmm.
women. If
Hmm.
I'd be seeing feminist women being extremely happy, glowing, and being like, oh my God, I'm just a bubble of joy, I'd be like, all power to you, women. But when I see how angry and bitter they're getting from this experience, I call it fake all the way.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Major Pain Podcast, the only podcast crafted to guide men like you on unraveling your uniqueness to transform the world around you. If you are a lady joining us, feel comfortable to listen as we help women learn how to build better men through the golden nuggets we will be sharing and learning. Follow this podcast wherever you are listening. Kindly like and subscribe if you are watching this on YouTube. Today, joining me to kickstart this three-part episode is a coach friend of mine, Julia Pazmandy. Julia is an unconditional love coach who teaches unconditional love and unconditional acceptance through self awareness. She changes people's lives by changing their mindset. She is shining bright and she is helping others find their light. I remember the first time I connected with her on LinkedIn, I was like, how can someone be so full of life? Well, you are about to find out. In this first episode, we went into uncharted territories about feminism in Canada. You sure don't want to miss this episode. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Enjoy this episode. Cheers. Welcome, Julia. Wow, it's so nice to have you on this podcast. Thanks for
Oh,
coming in.
likewise. I was looking forward to it. So this is very, very exciting, and I have so much to share.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, I'm really excited. And honestly, I would just give you the mic. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your purpose in life?
Of course. So originally, I was born in Siberia, Russia. And then my parents kind of traveled throughout the world. I had a chance to live in Spain, France, Cyprus. And then in 2001, we arrived to Montreal. And then 2003, we moved to Toronto. And I find that the ability to travel with my parents really gave me a different perspective on the world because I was exposed to a lot of cultures and I was able to experience different cultures and different ways to live, which really kind of opened up my outlook on life. And that's why I'm so passionate about working with people worldwide, is because I can actually connect and relate to them. With regards to my purpose, as you might have seen from my profile, I teach unconditional love because I think that love is very important. Especially unconditional love is when you love something or someone, regardless of good, bad, ugly, fair, or unfair. You just love them for existing. You love a person or yourself for the smile, for the human qualities and values that a person might have. And self-love can only come through self-awareness. And that's where I come in. Whenever I work with a client or with a person, what I do is first I show them what unconditional love is, and then I empower them to see the beauty of themselves through my eyes. And
Mm.
that's sort of how a person's mindset usually changes, because the moment they see themselves through my eyes, their reaction is like, wow, I am amazing. And I never knew that. I want to be true me. And that's sort of how the journey starts and the discovery starts and the mindset kind of switches. And I find that it's a very beautiful process to witness and I get to
Wow.
be a part of it. So how exciting is that?
Yeah, that's really exciting. I don't know, I would say I love that aspect of, having people to see themselves through your eyes. And I feel like it really amplifies the beauty of people because if you are the type of person that see love in people and see the beauty in people, because there are no opportunities to be told how beautiful they are, especially from other people, especially from authentic people. Exactly. So that's a powerful piece. I like that.
Well, you know what it is? Because I'm authentic and I am real, for people, when they come in contact with me and I tell them the great things about themselves that they might not have noticed, that's what really clicks. Because in their mind, they're like, okay, she is real. Everything she says is true. So if she tells me that I'm wonderful, I must be.
Right.
And that's
Exactly.
the thing. You know how we talked about like children and unconditional love and how we're told that there's lots of things that are wrong with us?
Right.
Well, the truth of a matter is when a person comes to me and I reassure them that there is nothing wrong with them and everything about them is right and just the way that it's supposed to be, that's what really takes off that edge, helps the
Right.
person breathe out and embrace themselves,
That's
which
good.
is very
That's good.
important.
Yeah. Awesome. Newcomer men is one of the segments of my target audience. Not just say men in particular, but newcomer men are. I this year I made up my mind. Sorry, late last year I made up my mind that I want to start reaching out to newcomer men more. And reason is that I'm a newcomer man. I'm 5 years in Canada this year.
Wow,
And
congrats. Oh my God, that's
yeah,
amazing. Oh,
exactly. Thank you so much.
awesome.
Yeah, and
I
I've
love your
seen.
mission.
Oh, thank you. I actually feel like this is something even new to a whole lot of people, even new to myself, because I see other immigration consultants. I'm not an immigration consultant. I'm just a newcomer mentor. That's what I categorize myself as, you understand, right? And my goal is to help newcomer men attain clarity, gain confidence, and create a legacy for themselves, right?
Good for you.
And I
That's
know that,
amazing.
right. And it's an audacious mission, and that comes with a lot of it comes with a lot of things, but then also just understanding the issues that they are going through, and then saying, okay, understanding the issues, and then coming up with a plan or a strategy for them to like work their way out of it. So I'm happy that you are able to share that powerful concept of self-love itself, which is really missing. First of all, as people in general, and then when you narrow it down again to even men themselves, it's like, oh my God, it's
True.
echoing. Like there's an echo in that aspect, like you know. So
Well, because I
and
feel that, and I don't want to kind of say mainly men, but I do think that in new generation, men have hard time being themselves because there's just so much expectation that put on them. And actually, I do want to touch base on feminism because, in my opinion, and actually, I'm going to backtrack. I want to congratulate you. And I want to tell you that the reason I am so inspired by your mission and the reason I think that you're going to be extremely successful is because you're doing it for the right reasons. You're doing it from a point of love and making somebody's life better. And I think that
wow.
that's what happened with feminism. I believe that feminism at first was about helping women with equality, abused women. But then as it turned into a fab, because as I said, I believe that things like feminism is turned into a fab, things like religion is now turned into a fab. Just like how we discussed earlier, the whole gluten-free matter. At first it was about helping people that have special needs, dietary needs. But now seeing gluten-free on the water bottles and wine bottles is like ridiculous. And it's the same thing what's happening with feminism. I find that for most part, especially in North America, feminism is very fake. I believe that it's not based on love. I think that at this point, it's based on hate. It went from women wanting to be equal, right? And again, not in a sense that, I think based of equality. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, men and women are different, and there's nothing wrong with that. And they do have different tolerances. It's like saying men and women are the same. So women can give birth, men can give birth. No. This whole notion of like staying at home dads, yes, there are some men that are very nurturing. But for the most part, women always raise children. Why? Because they are naturally more nurturing than men. Because women and men are wired differently. And it's okay to admit that. Yes, in terms of the society and respect, women and men should be treated equally. I get that. And I think that that's where it initially started. And now I feel like it's all about women trying to stick it to men and trying to show that they're better, that they're stronger, that they can do it on themselves, they can do it on their own. But really, if you look around, it's all fake. Because the women that do that are very angry and unhappy women. If I'd be seeing feminist women being extremely happy, glowing, and being like, oh my God, I'm just a bubble of joy, I'd be like, all power to you, women. But when I see how angry and bitter they're getting from this experience, I call it fake all the way. And technically, I always say that, and I have a post on that, you know how I said earlier that in life, everything is kind of about balance, right? Like day and night, winter, summer, black, white, yin yang. So it's the same thing when it comes to men and women. When we talk about feminism and how it initially started, it was for better, which turned bitter. And if you think about it, I always say that everybody goes through traumatic experiences in life. But there's two ways somebody can come out of it. One is the positive way, which I call better. Another one is the negative way, which I call bitter. And the difference is, and I'll give you an example. Let's say I had a client, and I remember he said that his dad would beat him up severely when he was little. So when he was growing up, he made himself a promise that he will never, ever, ever hit another person, not just his children, but anybody, because he knows how painful it is and how it felt. So that's how a person takes a negative experience and turns it into something better. However, there is another type of people, for example, my mom. When I was growing up, my mom would tell me that when she was a child, she suffered. And she would always say that, Julia, I'm going to make you suffer so you know what I went through and you know how it feels.
Wow.
And I call that type of experience bitter.
Exactly.
Because again, somebody suffered, and instead of coming out and saying, I know what pain is, I will not cause it to others, they say, the pain sucks and I'm going to cause it to everybody. So everybody feels the way I felt. And I think that's where feminism is turning into bitter, because at first it was like, hey, we want to be treated equally with equal amount of respect. We want to have the same possibilities as a man, coming from love and kindness and about being authentic, allowing women to be themselves and empowering them. And that's what turned from something beautiful into something really ugly and fake, where women just turned bitter and said, you know what, we were dominated for years. So guess what? Now we're going to dominate you.
Right.
Well, no one's going to win from that.
I've been hearing
completely broken logic, in my opinion.
Right. You know how they say, like misogyny is a word right now that's trended, but misandry, which is the opposite, it's something that is hardly talked about. And I feel like misandry is something that we are beginning to see, which is women hating on men or speaking
That's
degrading.
very sad.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. And you know, you touched something that I just want to ask you. Would you say, because you're a woman yourself, right? Yeah, would you say feminism right now, it's more like women setting up other women for failure? Is that what it looks like? Because I was I was like, I've been watching a couple of videos, and there was this psychologist that really talked about female nature, how female compete among themselves, and how female, if they see that a lady is doing better, they would seriously better than them, mostly, that they would, instead of uplift, they would look for ways to knock it down. And then when okay, okay, I'll just let
I'm
you
ready.
take...
I'm all ready with
take
this.
it up, take it up.
So here's the thing. I do want to acknowledge that, you know how I said men and women are wired differently?
Right.
So I'd imagine that you'd agree that men are more logical and women are more emotional. And it's funny that you brought this example because 2 weeks ago, I had a new client and it was a woman. And her issue is that she really had a hard time being happy when other people, men or women, and especially women, would do better than her. So let's say if somebody were to put a picture in the Instagram that they bought a new car, it would just eat her up inside. She was not able to share the happiness of other women because she would indirectly compare herself to what she's seeing. Now, this is where I said, you know how I said that the root of all is lack of self-love?
Sure, yeah.
And that was it. After literally a week of working together and me trying to change the focus and change her mindset, because again, I change people's lives simply by changing their mindset. And by the time I explained to her that she doesn't need to compete with anybody because she's unique, because she's a gift in itself, and no one has anything on her because she is unique. There is nothing to compare with. She was able to breathe out. And the moment she accepted herself, she could care less for other women. And then from that point on, it was about building up that kindness so she actually gets happy for others. Long story short, literally this Monday, she sent me a message. She's like, oh my God, Julia, for the first time, I go on Instagram and I like all my friends' pictures because I'm genuinely happy for them. Why? Because for the first time, she stopped comparing. The reason people get jealous is because they compare. But why compare if you feel good enough in yourself? They don't. That's why they do that. Because the person that is happy, and here's another thing, I always say that happy people cannot be me. And you can like ask my husband, you can ask my kids, like literally anybody in my surrounding. I could not be mean even if I tried to. Like I have a best friend, and whenever I try to like come up with like, I don't know, a joke, insult, she always goes, Julia, you're so lame. She's like, you can't even insult somebody because you're just too nice. And it's true. I do believe that I'm extremely nice because you know what? All I have in me is joy, happiness, and love.
Wow.
And a human being can only share what he or she has. So that's why people can share time, money, energy. Why? It's because what they have in access. The problem is most people are so miserable that all they have is like anger and bitterness to share. And that's exactly what they're sharing, because a happy person, I am telling you as a fact, genuinely happy person that loves him or herself will automatically love the world outside of them. And automatically will want to share that happiness. That's why, like, honestly, I just want to run around and hug people and tell them how amazing you are. Like, I hug strangers all the time. Like, people come up to me and like go, oh, can I give you a hug? And I'm like, go for it. Let's hug it out. Because all I have is just love towards people, love towards humanity.
That's good. That's
what happens when you love yourself. Because I never compare myself to anybody. I never have issues with envy. I never look at somebody and like, I want to have that. Because guess what? If I really want to have something, I know I'm capable of having it.
Exactly.
But most people don't see that. Most people are just so used to playing a role of a victim and being in a very, I call it an infantile position of a person saying, well, the whole world owns me. I'm so unlucky. I don't have a job of my dreams. You don't have a job of your dreams. Go get it. Go create it.
Go create it.
You have a shitty relationship. Don't sit there crying about it. Do something about it. Get up. Change it. You know, I always, I have an interesting story. My grandma called me once and she says, oh, Julia, you know, you talk about unconditional love, but not everybody is fortunate as you are. And I'm like, okay, how is that? And she goes, well, look at my sister. She lives with a husband who's an alcoholic. He abuses her. Like, she calls me every night and she's crying. And I'm like, Grandma, you understand that's her choice to be with a man who beats her up because she believes she deserves it. And she's like, no, no, no. She tells me she doesn't deserve it. And I'm like, but she's not leaving him. And my grandma goes, well, she has nowhere to go. And I go, what do you mean she has nowhere to go? She can go to the shelter. She can go to you. She can go and ask her daughter to stay with her. The point is, she is choosing to put up with an abusive relationship for shelter. But if she's doing it, at least she should admit that to herself and be honest with herself and say, yes, I am choosing to stay in this abusive relationship because I need shelter. Because the moment you take responsibility for what you're choosing, you can actually have a chance of changing it. Because if she were to recognize that the only reason she's living with that man, not because she loves him, not because he makes her happy, she's living with him so she has a place to sleep. If she were to realize that and sit down and think, okay, am I that bad that I cannot find any other man or any other shelter? She would realize that no, she has options. But it's much easier to sit in the position of the victim and say, boo-hoo-hoo, poor me, there's nothing I can do. This is my life. I'm just going to have to take it. Where in reality, it's not true at all.
Makes sense.
But most people don't want to take responsibility for that.
Right.
And that's sad.
Would you say society right now has moved to a place whereby from people taking responsibility of their actions to people just enjoying the whole victimhood and not really taking a step forward?
100%. Being victim is the easiest thing you can do because nothing is your fault. You have a shitty job, it's not your fault. You have a crappy relationship, it's not your fault. It's a fault of your spouse. Because it's much easier to blame others than actually get up and do something about it. I always have a saying that if people trigger you or if something triggers you, it is a you problem.
Right.
And I'll explain you how it works. Like, let's say you having a conversation with somebody. For example, let's take a scenario. You have a girlfriend who's abusive. So let's say you're standing and having a conversation with her and she starts yelling at you. Here's the thing. You cannot tell another person what to do. You cannot tell her, shut up, stop yelling at me. Yes, you can mention it to her in the sense that, hey, I do not appreciate the way you're talking to me. If you're going to continue doing it because you accept her choice, she might choose to stop, but she might not stop and choose to continue. So you have to acknowledge that that's her choice. And you cannot force her to do things differently. But what you can advise is you can say, listen, if you want to continue yelling, I'm not okay with that. You can continue yelling, but I'm going to walk away and withdraw myself from that situation.
Right.
And that's where people can empower themselves and recognize that they don't have to put up with things that they don't like. If you don't like it, I actually had a post, if you don't like something, move. You're not a tree.
Right.
You're not tied. Like very often when people go like, oh my God, I'm in an awful marriage. I'm in an awful relationship. I have no choice but to cheat because I have to find love and emotion somewhere on the side. And I always laugh. I'm like, are you tied to a chair at home? Like, did somebody chain you to a bed and telling you cannot leave? Of course you can leave. You can say, buddy, this relationship ain't working. Bye.
Right.
Person chooses to stay, but then they don't want to take that responsibility. They don't want to say, yeah, it's my choice to stay in a messed up relationship. Why? Well, because what does that say about them?
So I used to say that we need to take ownership of our own reality. And that itself gives you so much power to onboard, like to go through that process and to onboard the next stage and the next level. And for all you're saying makes so much sense because we see this lack of people taking responsibility. It's okay for me to uh to say I'm going through this, but it's not okay for me to say what can I do to get out of it. It's more like they're choosing the things that are not empowering them to make those moves. And I begin to ask myself one question, that do some people really want to make that next move? As a coach like you and I believe that you've come across some clients who you can tell that this person is not ready to make that next move. And,
100%. One
right.
thing I do have to be very honest with
Yeah.
is I don't take all clients. For me, I have to make sure and feel within my heart that the person is ready. Because I always say that, yes, I get paid for my time, but what I do, I don't do it for money. Like, I ain't hurting. I ain't struggling. I can stop working tomorrow and I'll be solid. Obviously, I cannot just donate my time, so that's why I get paid for it. But I invest my heart, my soul, my energy, and that's why, for example, when I work with somebody, my session comes with a week supervision. So if the person thinks of something at 3 a.m., they can send me a message. Because why? Because I'm genuinely interested in helping them. Right. My excitement comes not from the money that is wired to me. My excitement comes from the fact when the person is writing to me a month later, holy shit, Julia, you changed my life. Correct. Oh my God, like I now see things differently. Correct. And that's really what's inspiring me, because literally I receive those messages daily. Like, you know, I have a friend, and she's a family physician. She practices here in Canada, and she works in one of the Toronto hospitals. And I remember one time she goes, Julia, how do you deal with haters? And it was so funny to me because I told her, I said, I have no haters. I'm so fortunate to say that I've never had a case where I weren't able to show the person the other side or change somebody's life. Because again, what I'm doing is so authentic that anybody who works with me, they just can't be fake with me. Because there's no point. Even when somebody's faking it in the beginning, they can see that I ain't buying it. Right. And I am very fast to call it out too. Because in my opinion, if I'm sugarcoating things for people, that's dishonesty. And if somebody's gonna pay me for my honest opinion, I'm gonna give it to them. But the point here is I'm gonna give it to them with love. Right. Because every single thing you can do from two positions, better and bitter.
So now, I think this is a perfect segue to the other aspect of our conversation, masculinity in Canada, right? How would you say masculinity in Canada has changed over the years?
I find that, and I would say in the last like 3 to 4 years, I find that men are starting to accept the inevitable fate as it is. And it's funny because my husband and I kind of had a conversation about it, because if you look back, let's say 20 years ago, if a man were to say, hey, I want to be a stay-at-home dad, people would kind of like roll their eyes at that person and being like, okay, that's strange, but sure. About 10 years in, there was a lot of movies that would come out with joking about, you know, men being like women and being stay-at-home moms and all this stuff. And there's a lot of comedies on that subject. Well, in the last 3 to 4 years, if you look at TikTok and Instagram, there was more and more memes and funny videos of men pretending on taking a woman's role. And technically, if you look now, there's a lot of men that take mat leaves so their wives can go back to work and provide while they are stay at home with their child. And the reason I'm saying that is because nowadays when somebody says, well, I'm a stay-at-home dad, everybody's like, okay. But 20 years ago, people would say, are you crazy? You know, there wasn't even such thing as like a mat leave for men. But now it is. Why? I think because the society indirectly supports this change. But this
Mhm.
change, honestly, it doesn't really benefit humans. It benefits the society because, yes, women tend to be more task oriented. I do find that sometimes women do get accomplished and get more things done versus
Right.
men, which is again still a bit questionable.
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that nowadays the society is trying to get women into a workforce, hoping that they can produce more
Mm-hmm.
rather than men, which is sure, but I think it's very unethical towards people, towards human beings. Because
Mm.
basically, it's again, it's putting on a mask. You take in the originals and then you changing it and shifting it and changing human minds into
Mm-hmm.
something that's not coming through by nature. Because I
Mm.
haven't seen, and again, depending on the energy, right? Because that's why I believe that some people, are born, let's say a woman born with the active energy would be attracted to other women, because
Mm.
technically what that woman is attracted to is not necessarily another woman, but the passive energy in that woman.
Mm.
So going back to the whole concept of energies is that if we look at girls with the passive energies, right, that are born very feminine, and we're talking about 3, 4, 5 year olds, you
Mm-hmm.
don't see them dreaming to become a worker or work at the factory or, I don't know, being a businessman. All
Mm-hmm.
they dream of is to have a baby and get
Mm-hmm.
married and,
Mm-hmm.
do their hair and makeup and, I don't know, nails. That's what girls do. But then again, now the society is trying to advertise it through movies, through shows, through social media, saying, hey, don't be girly, put on the pants, don't worry about makeup, just go make money. And if you're going to make money, you don't need a man, then you don't need to be feminine, then you don't need to be pretty. You can dress up like I don't know, a scarecrow and get out, because guess what? You're not dependent on anybody. And yes, it's true to a certain degree. But here's the thing, then a woman really needs to look within herself and identify and figure out who she truly is from within.